So within Xcode, we can actually build out additional capabilities for our application, including things like health kit, maps, etc. And these are called framework capabilities. So first we need to actually visit the capabilities tab. We get to that by just clicking on our project name and then going over to capabilities. And then within that, we can see that there is a series of different options that we can turn on and off. Now I want to point out that these options are going to look different based on your level of developer account. I'm using an account right now that doesn't have any special paid developer licenses, so these are the only options that I get. If I visit the Apple developer website, we can see advanced app capabilities where if I was to pay I think it's $100 a year or $110 a year with taxes, something like that, you can see that that includes things like Apple Pay and Device Check and Game Kit and things like that. So let's go back to the capabilities screen and let's turn on something like Maps. So go ahead and just look over here on the left-hand side of the Project Navigator. Whenever I twirl Maps down, we can see with MapKit you can create routing apps that users can access from Maps. Your apps can provide specific directions beyond what the Maps app can support, including subway routes, hiking trails, or bike paths. Turning it on will link the mapkit.framework. So if I turn it on, suddenly we have this frameworks that appears under maps. We can choose the different types of routing. So let's say airplane, bike, bus, car, ferry, pedestrian. We'll just select those for now. And whenever I twirl down the frameworks, I now have the mapkit.framework file within here. If I select that and twirl that down, I have a bunch of different things like headers, tons of different .h files, which basically are just files that we can take a look at. And these are all things that are integrated within the framework that we can call upon later. So all we're doing is just integrating that within our app. It's not being called anywhere. It's not actually present within our app, but we have to call it, with a MapKit line of code with something like import MapKit, for example. So that's how we add capabilities and frameworks to our projects. Now, in this class, the scope, we're not really going to be able to actually get into utilizing those frameworks, but I just want to make you aware of that capabilities screen, largely for inspiration, right? I can look at this and say, oh yeah, HomeKit, that's a thing that exists, right? Personally, I don't own anything that has HomeKit with it, but maybe you do. Okay, cool. That would be an interesting thing to integrate into my app, and you can turn that on and off. Once you do all these things, this will also change how your app is accepted for publication later. So keep that in mind that you don't want to include a bunch of things that you aren't actually going to be using. For instance, if you're not using user passwords, you really don't need keychain sharing on. And in fact, if you have it on and you aren't using passwords for a very explicit purpose, your app will likely get rejected based on security reasons. So this is the capability screen, just throwing that out there for you to look at and mess with. And then once you integrate these frameworks, you can dive deep into the documentation and see, okay, how do I actually call up apps or integrate my app into Maps?